Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance, who is hosting this Superintendent of School Candidates Forum this evening. And I want to welcome you to our campus. We are going to begin our program. I'm going to open by asking Dr. Ricky Anderson to open us in prayer and also acknowledge the member congregation that are part of the Ministerial Alliance. Dr. Anderson.
Let us pray. Most gracious God, our Father, we are gathered here today. We ask for your directives as we participate in this forum. We pray that what we do here today, that you will get the glory out of it. We ask your blessings upon these candidates as well as the panelists, as well as the moderator. Even bless those that are here listening today in person, as well as those that will be listening and watching live. We pray that as we continue to strive for the betterment of our community, that you would bind us together in one spirit. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen. I'm going to, I'm going to call the name of the participating churches. Some of the pastors are here. We have Bishop David L. Grant, Apostolic Evangelistic Association. We have Reverend V.D. Blacksmith, Apostolic House of God. Reverend Curtis and Dr. LaSheba McCarter, Friendship Church of God in Christ. Pastor Samuel B. Watkins Jr., Zion Hope Missionary Baptist Church. Pastor Eddie and April Smith, Trinity Christian Outreach Ministries. I see you're here. Just hold your hand, please. Bishop Housley and Dr. Linda Watkins, Jesus Christ Outreach Center. Pastor Michael Bonds, Jerusalem Church of God in Christ. Pastor Unique and First Lady Beatrice Castor, Hallelujah Community Church. Pastor Judy W. Sykes, Apostolic House of Prayer. Bishop Eric and Dr. Denise Johnson, New Life Worship Center. Pastor Raymond David, New Life Hope Assembly. Pastor Gregory and Marjorie Ford, Cornerstone Church of Fort Myers. Dr. Leon Williams from St. John First Missionary Baptist Church. Dr. Allen and Pastor Mary Stockton, New Image Tabernacle. Reverend Denise A. Sawyer, Lee Health Spiritual Services System Director. Dr. William and Pastor Cheryl Glover, Mount Hermon Church. And Dr. Ricky and Elder Teresa Anderson, Followers of Christ Fellowship Ministries.
Amen. So with that, I'm going to review our format for this evening. I will be serving as the moderator. The intent of this forum is to be educational in nature, to allow the candidates for the superintendent of schools to share their plans on leading the school district. And they're going to be questioned by our three panel personnel who will be presenting the questions to them. They will be introducing themselves in a moment. But those scripted questions will cover 7 categories. Number 1, their vision for the school district. Number 2, curriculum development and student achievement. Number 3, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Number 4, parental and community engagement. Number 5, school safety. Number 6, teacher recruitment and retention. And number 7, educational funding. We're going to try to get to all of the categories. Of course, the discussion this evening will drive our success in that endeavor, but that's what our aim is. The moderator and the panelists who ask the question may ask a follow-up question if it is deemed necessary. At the conclusion of the panel questions will be received from you, the live audience. You will have an opportunity to ask your questions, so we want to encourage you to listen intently as we work our way through those categories. And if there's any question you felt that went unasked or you would like some elaboration on, please write that down and be prepared to move expeditiously when given an opportunity to present your question. We also are streaming live via Facebook and YouTube, so we will have a streaming audience, and they will also be able to ask questions. So those of you who are streaming, we want to encourage you to be engaged, and as we go through, simply write your questions in the comment section. We have a monitor who will be taking those questions on a card and presenting them, and we will ask those questions on your behalf. So we are ready to begin our 2024 Superintendent of Schools Candidates Forum, and we are going to begin by allowing each candidate to introduce themselves by answering this following introductory question. Why are you interested in the Superintendent of Schools for Lee County? And what about your background, skills, experiences, and professional characteristics prepare you for it? We will give you 3 minutes for this introductory response, and we drew straws, as it were, and candidate Carlin drew the first straw, so she gets the first question.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me in the back? All right, just want to do a quick sound check. So good evening. I am Denise Carlin, and just thank you all for being here this evening. We know that there are many things that you could choose to do, and you prioritize our children in this community and our school system, so just thank you. Thank you to Dr. Glover, as well as the panelists for serving tonight. So I am Denise Carlin. I am a 55-year resident of Lee County. I basically grew up here. I'm married to the love of my life, John, and we have 2 amazing sons who are graduates of the Lee County School District, so I'm also a mom. And also, I'm a 32-year educator. Had the opportunity to serve this district as a teacher, a principal, and then later as a district administrator. I finished my career as chief of staff and then chief of communications and government relations. As chief of staff, I was the number 2 in the district, the number 2 seat. So I worked hand in hand with the superintendent of schools to lead the 33rd largest district in the nation. Why am I running? Get asked that question a lot. First of all, obviously, I'm very committed to this community. I'm one of 7 children. All of us are here. We're deeply committed to Lee County and to making sure that our children have the best educational experience possible. You may recall about 2 years ago, the voters were really clear and said, we want to have an elected superintendent who is accountable to the people, not the school board. And so I'm very excited about this. They also wanted somebody that represented them. They wanted somebody that represented their voices in the community. I am a conservative Republican, and I look forward to this conversation tonight where we can clearly delineate our experiences and our background that suit us for the superintendent position. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And candidate Aries, you now have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming out. Reverend Glover, thank you very much for having this panel. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm here because I'm Victor Arias, and I'm running for Superintendent of Lee County Schools. I've been an attorney for 33 years. What brought me here 25 years ago was the school district of Lee County. They recruited me to be their attorney for the superintendent. And before that, I was the attorney for another superintendent across the state for 5 years. I am originally from the Dominican Republic, where they still don't have running water or electricity. I am one of 8 children, 5 boys and 3 girls. I was raised in the projects of New York City. I am happily married to my wife, Angelette, for 30 years. We have 2 kids in the school district, both going to be seniors, and we pray every day for them. So, why do I want to be the attorney for the superintendent? Why? Most importantly, because I want to include everybody, all the children, from wherever they came from, regardless of race, regardless of party, whether they're progressive, conservative, or liberal. We're here to teach all of our children. We have to be accountable. Accountable means to me is that you're the taxpayers. Your dollars are important. And your dollars is what pays for the children to learn.
You have 1 minute left.
Parents, students, and teachers, We have to get the parents involved in the education of the children. If the parents do not get involved, we're not going to have high achievers. Yo hablo español también. So, si hay alguien aquí que habla español, aprenden inglés. So, I'm here. I want to change the culture to be inclusive, to be positive, and to make sure that all the children shoot for the stars, not the earth, not this county, shoot for the stars. And if they shoot for the stars and miss, hopefully they'll reach the moon. But that should be the attitude. Shoot for the stars, because each and every child has the potential. And we as adults
Thank you, sir.
have that
That's your time.
responsibility, have the responsibility to help them reach for those stars. Thank you very much. I'm Victor Arias, Superintendent of Lee County Schools.
Thank you for your opening statements and for introducing yourselves to the community. We will now begin our round of scripted questions from the categories that I mentioned. The first category is Vision for Lee County Schools. Our panelists will begin to ask those questions on a rotating basis. And we'll begin our questioning with Dr. Anderson. And Dr. Anderson, you may present the first question.
The first question here is directed to Dr. Carlin. The question is, the district's vision is to be a world-class school system. How does your vision and priorities align with the district to ensure each student achieves their highest personal potential?
Thank you for the question. So in my administration, we will have 5 priorities, and it always starts with ensuring a safe and secure environment. If you're like me, you've watched the news, you've seen the shootings that have occurred, you've seen the different dangerous situations that can occur in a school. We want to make sure that our students feel safe and secure, as well as our staff members. Nothing is more important to me than the safety and security of our students and our staff. Right in line with that is increased student achievement. When children feel safe, they have an opportunity to learn. And so we know right now, when we look at our student achievement data and we look at the top 10 districts in terms of size in the state of Florida, we are ranked number 9 out of 10. That is completely unacceptable. And that's in all categories, looking at English language arts, math, science, social studies. I don't want to be at the bottom of the heap. I want to be at the top of the heap. And when we do that, we provide wonderful opportunities for our children after high school. If they do not leave school literate, they don't leave 12th grade literate, they're out of the game. So we want to make sure that we are focused on getting back to the basics, reading, writing, math, science, social studies, civics, and ensuring that students are leaving our school system well equipped for whatever career path they may choose. I have 3 other priorities: ensuring that we have high quality teachers in front of every single student. And you're going to hear me talk about educational research. I do have my doctorate, so I'll probably be a little bit of a data nerd tonight. But the 2 things that are going to move student achievement forward are always a high quality teacher and more time. So we need to take care of the teachers we have, which includes paying them in the way that they should be paid, comparable to our local school districts, making sure that we provide excellent working conditions for them.
1 minute remaining.
Thank you. And so when those things happen, teachers want to stay. How do I know that? I've been meeting with teachers after school, during the summer, asking them what is driving teachers out of our system. And it really comes down to pay and working conditions. In addition, we need to ensure that we are fiscally responsible. I will go through the budget and ensure that as many dollars as possible go back into the classroom and to our schools, and that includes our teachers and their pay. And finally, but very importantly, empowering the voices of our parents. We need them as our partners, and you and I both know when parents are engaged and involved, students are more successful. So that's how my vision aligns.
Thank you. Dr. Ayers. Dr. Ayers, you now have an opportunity to respond to that same question.
Okay.
Do you need it repeated?
Well,
Let me repeat
I
it.
was,
The district's vision is to be a world-class school system. How does your vision and priorities align with the district to ensure each student achieve their highest personal potentials?
first of all, as I stated in my opening statement, we have to include and be inclusive and treat every child the same and every parent the same, every educator the same. We have to get involved because, again, if we don't get involved, we will not have positive results. If we continue to do the same thing over and over and over again, you're not going to get a different result. So you need a change. That's super important. You need a change. We just heard some statistics, okay? And those statistics, unfortunately, just shows a declining school district. It's been declining for the past 20 years. Why? The school district has spent millions of dollars marketing to try to bring in superintendents. And guess what? The superintendents have been hired have basically lasted 1 to 2 years. They have either been fired or they have resigned. So we have to change the culture. We have to change the culture in order to get better results. That's just a fact of life. We cannot continue to do the same thing over and over and over again. Apparently, that's the definition of insanity. We're a lot smarter than that. So we have to change. The vision, again, treat every child the same. Encourage every child the same.
1 minute remaining.
And provide them with the tools that will help them achieve. Those tools are, for us, the parents and the adults and the community, to get involved, okay? Again, we have programs in the school district, but guess what? The parents don't even know how to use it. We have a program called Focus, but the parents don't know how to use it, and they can get access to their grades and the discipline history. And all we got to do is sit them down. I will do a listening tour and visit every school at least once a week to make sure that the parents are participating and all the children are learning.
That's your time, sir.
Thank you.
Next question. You need your microphone.
I was using my teacher voice. That's all right. The next question is, in light of the fact that the superintendent will be elected, several things will be different. How will you work with the board that you do not report to? Sorry, that's directed to Mr. Arias.
Thank you very much for the question. Now that we have an elected superintendent, okay, thank God I have an opportunity to be the superintendent because now it's elected as opposed to being appointed. We will work together, okay? They're not above me, I'm not above them. We have to work together. Why? For the sake of the children, for the sake of the community. We have to work together. And I will be providing them with the information that they need so that we can have lively discussions and see how we can reach consensus. Because we're not there for individuals. We're there for the whole 100,000 students, not just one. So whether they're in one district or the other, we have a unified goal, which is to teach each and every child. And we have to teach them the same, treat them the same, encourage them the same, and hopefully get the best outcome. So I'm hoping that the board and myself, if I'm elected, we will work together for the betterment of all the children. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Should I repeat the question?
Miss-
For Dr. Carlin, in light of the fact the superintendent will be elected, several things will be different. How will you work with the board you do not report to?
Thank you for the question. So we'll start with what will be the same. And when you look at Florida statute has not changed relative to the purview of the board. The board is responsible for developing and passing board policies. They are responsible for providing oversight for their employees, and they are responsible for having oversight and approval of the school district budget. So that's memorialized in statute. Also in statute is the superintendent as the CEO of the organization. So the responsibility of the superintendent is to operate, to do the day-to-day operations of the school district, and to implement the policy as passed by the school board. The difference is certainly now we're more colleagues, right? So the superintendent will be elected and the board is elected, and we all answer to the people. How we're going to work together is how I've worked together with colleagues, with the board in the past, in my past positions. I've had the opportunity to work very closely with the board. We work collaboratively together. We look for common ground. If there are differences, we take a moment to talk through those differences, and then we get to a better place. So if you think of the analogy, we could use any form of government. Let's use the state level. We have a governor who is the executive branch, right? And so responsible for that day-to-day decision-making. That's like the superintendent now. You think about the legislative branch. Their job is to make laws, right? And just like the school board, they will make board policy, and they will also provide oversight and approval of the budget, much like the state legislature. So if you think about that analogy, that's how the work occurs. My anticipation is that we work collaboratively like we have my whole career, whether I've worked with teachers, support staff, and the board. We always look for common ground. If there are differences, we work our way through them and get to a better place. But I will tell you, we will always do what's right by children.
Thank you.
Continuing in the focus area for the vision of Lee County School District, this question will begin with Dr. Carlin. Lee County continues to grow by estimates of over 100 people each day. Please share your plan to address the anticipated growth in student population and the priority for new schools in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So right now, we are up 2,000 students since May. So that's a significant amount of growth. That's at least a school and a half, right? If you think about our high schools, it's a couple of elementary schools, depending on how the children are showing up. So we are having exponential growth. There is no doubt about it. And it's only September. We haven't even made it to season when we tend to see our friends from the north relocate here because it's a little extra chilly up north. So what are we going to do? Well, there's a couple of plans. Number one, we have to acknowledge that we are growing. And right now, the district's capital plan does not have a new school in place for a couple of years. Remember, I just said 2,000 students we've grown by. So we have to get innovative. We've got to look at things differently. One of the things that I would advocate that we do is we have an inspection of each one of our sites to see if there is the ability to add another building or two. The infrastructure is there. We don't have to build a gym, another cafeteria, what have you. Let's examine each one of our sites and see if there's room for another building or two. When I was a principal, the superintendent at the time put 19 additions on in our schools, and I was one of them. We added about 300 to 400 seats at my school. That was just one school. So we need to look at that. There's also another thing we should look at, and we are looking at that with Hector Cafretta and Cape Coral, but we need to look and explore public-private partnerships a little deeper. Those are opportunities where private entities get involved. They help us so that we don't have to front major amounts of capital dollars It's essentially a lease, and then you wind up at the end of the term buying the property for $1 or a nominal fee. So we need to look at things like P3s. And then the other thing we need to do is talk to our partners in education. We need to embrace our charter schools and our private schools, because with this amount of growth, we can't be the only game in town. We need them to help alleviate some of the pressure on our schools. You know, we've had 700 students move into our East Zone since the very beginning of the year. That's astronomical, and all of those schools are over capacity. So to wait and say, we're gonna wait to build schools in a couple of years, the East Zone is screaming right now, we need space for our children. So there are things we can do right away to help alleviate those problems, and those are some of my ideas.
Thank you.
Candidate areas. Lee County continues to grow by an estimate of over 100 people each day. Please share your plan to address the anticipated growth in student population and the priority for new schools in the next 5 to 10 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is not the first time or the first day that we heard that Lee County is growing by leaps and bounds. We have known this for many, many years. Even when I got here 25 years ago, it's been growing by leaps and bounds. We can't just decide, make decisions, okay, without anticipating and adjusting. We know that this county is growing every year by 500 to 700 students. That's been basically that number for the past many years. So you have to create a strategic plan that is for the future, that is inclusive. Again, you can't continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. And that's why you need a change in the leadership. The document's already here. You can Google what has already been said. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Or what have you done to anticipate these changes? And if I'm elected, if it's God's will, God's grace, I'm elected, I'm going to review everything and make a 5-year, 10-year, 25-year strategic plan in anticipation for all this growth. It doesn't take rocket science to anticipate the growth. They're going to come. This is a sunshine state. I went to law school in Buffalo. How did I get down here? Had never been in Florida. An organization offered me a job, Florida Rural Legal Services, to serve the poor. And you know what they did? Very wise.
1 minute remaining.
They put me on the beach. I was in a hotel for the first time on the beach. And guess what that said to me? This is heaven. This is the closest thing to heaven. Okay? And you know what? That's going to be part of the teaching recruitment. I'm going to work with FP&L, LECC, and all organizations and businesses like mine, okay? And have them put up teachers, new recruits, at the hotel on the beach. And guess what those teachers are going to do? They're going to come here. So you have to look, the vision. Look forward. Don't look backwards. You learn from the past, but you learn and prepare for the future. And I hope to God, if I am your superintendent, I will guarantee you that we are going to be looking towards the future.
That is your time, sir. So that concludes our questions in the category of vision for Lee County Schools. I hope you took good notations to revisit some of these responses when you have an opportunity to take the floor. We're moving on to our second category that deals with curriculum development and student achievement. Ms. Gwen Giddens gets to present the first question in this category.
Thank you. And the question first goes to candidate Arias. Lee County in 2023, English language arts reading scores were lower than the state's average in all grades. Third grade, the state level was 55, Lee County was 48. Seventh grade, the state was 50%, and our county was 46. 10th grade, the state was 53%, and we were 47%. What is your plan for increasing these reading rates?
Thank you. The plan is, again, simple. Include the parents. You have to include the parents. Now, this is where the community gets involved, right? Now that we know that the school district has an app, to Focus app, where the parents can access student grades and the student discipline, right? So let's go and open up the schools after school, and even on Saturdays, for the parents that work, okay, 3 to 4 jobs, and come home at 7 exhausted. Let's open it up, okay, so that they can come in. And we'll just have a monitor, just like you can see in the back. A monitor. And we can even have their kids, because kids are more nimble and they know technology better than we do. Why I know that? Because my kids and my wife and I's kids tell us every day that we're dumb, right? Right? That's what they tell us every day. Why? Because, listen, I was a good student until algebra, right? I was a good parent teaching our children. When we got to algebra, I said, that's not for me, right? Because it was difficult. And Angeletta and I had to work for a living and make sure the kids had food and shelter, right? But we had to adjust. What we can't do, we get the community to do. So you open the schools up, right? When I was growing up, they opened up the schools after school, and guess what? I played basketball with other kids. After I was exhausted, did my homework and tutored, then I had that opportunity to play basketball. So we need to open up these schools for all children.
1 minute
We
remaining.
need to open up the churches for all children. And I'm going to expect Reverend Dr. Glover and every child that's in his parish, okay? We're going to check. We're going to work together to make sure that every child can read and write, whether they can't speak English, okay, whether they're Creole, speak Spanish. Open up. We already have the resources. We already have the space. All we got to do is work together. I promise you, I will work with you. And you know what? And again, bringing in the business community, like I've been practicing for 23 years. A teacher calls me or principal calls me, we need this. What am I going to do? I'm going to write out a check. You know why? Because I want each and every child to be successful. Thank you very much, Victor Arias.
Thank you.
And
Before we get to Dr. Carlin, did I just understand Mr. Aries commit to writing a check to Mount Hermon Church?
Hey,
I was a little distracted, but
hey, you know what an attorney would say? The check is in the mail, right? And he already received it.
forgive that moderator privilege there. Please present the question
So
to Ms. Carlin.
repeating the question for candidate Carlin. The Lee County in 2023 ELA or English Language Arts scores were lower than the state at each grade level. Third grade was 55 for the state, 48 for Lee County. Seventh grade, 50% for the state, 46 for Lee County. 10th grade, 53% for the state and 47% for Lee County. What is your plan for increasing these reading rates?
Yeah, so this confirms what I said a few minutes ago in terms of our student achievement. Children achieving below the 50% mark in terms of proficiency is alarming, and it's one of the reasons why I chose to run for this position. We cannot have children, less than 50% of our children being literate. That just is unacceptable. And so what do? There are schools out there that are making this happen. They don't have 50%, they have 60, 70, 80%, 90% of their children reading. And yes, some would argue demographics matter. But I will tell you, some of our schools that are the most struggling schools have tremendous gains in English language arts. And why? So I'll go back to my research that I referenced earlier. Number one, the most important thing that we can do to improve student achievement in any area, including ELA, is to hire and have high-quality teachers in front of every single child. Right now, we're 180 teachers short. That means 180 classrooms are not filled by a classroom teacher. That should be alarming to everybody in this community, not just in this room, not just Victor and I, but everybody in this community. So we absolutely need to commit on day one to going to work on that teacher shortage. And it can happen. And we talked about those ways a few minutes ago. The other piece is more time. When I was a principal, one of the reasons why we had an A school for 8 consecutive years, and you could look at all of our data, disaggregate it, look at students with special needs, look at children of all races, nationalities, ethnicities, socioeconomics. The reason why we made such tremendous strides is because we had high quality teachers and we built in more time during the instructional day. Too many of our students have responsibilities after school, and I agree, school should be their number one priority, but for some of our families, that's not possible.
1 minute remaining.
They are helping to support the family. And so we have a duty also to look at the instructional day. So what did I do as principal? I looked at our system and I said, children come in on the bus. Let's have breakfast clubs. I sat with the group. My assistant principal sat with the group. We had reading coaches. So when children came in, they had breakfast with us. Guess what? We got 100 minutes of extra English language arts instruction right during breakfast time. We suspended specials periodically, so children had an additional 40 to 45 minutes. We looked at ways within the instructional day because too many children have to get on the bus and go home. Yes, I agree, we need before and after school programs. Yes, we need mentors. Yes, we need tutors. But if we're gonna fix the problem, it's more time, high quality teachers will solve the problem every day of the week.
Thank you. Next
Okay,
question.
this next question is directed to Dr. Carlin. There are also significant gaps, disparities in student achievements in academics and discipline along racial and social economic lines. What are your strategies to address and close them?
So that is the truth. When we look at our data and we disaggregate it across the district, and again, there are schools that are absolutely addressing their SS subgroups and they're making sure that every child is making progress. But we have too many situations where children are not making progress, both behaviorally and academically. So let's talk academics first. It starts with expectation. We expect every single child to achieve in our school district. And we have to look at innovative ways, different ways, like I just shared with you at my school when I was principal, to maximize the time so that children have more time to learn. Because again, what does the research tell us? More time, high quality teacher improves student achievement. You can bring in all the programs you want. The research is clear. That does not move achievement forward. It does not. It simply doesn't. It is a high quality teacher and more time. So it's incumbent upon us to close those achievement gaps. Some of our children just need more time with a high quality teacher. When we close the teacher gap, we don't have any more vacancies, which is my goal in this administration. If I become elected superintendent, we will not have vacancies. And if we do, they won't be for long. We will make sure that we build in more time for our students. And let's talk about discipline for a minute. When we have clear expectations, when our students understand what is expected of them, and by the way, we have to teach them. The root of the word discipline in Latin is to teach. So at the elementary level, we want to make sure children understand what it means when you discipline them. It is to teach them. Some of our children don't come to school understanding the expectations. We need to make sure they're crystal clear. And then we need to enforce those positively and negatively, rewarding kids, giving positive praise. Little ones love that. Older students love that. But we also need to be clear that when disciplinary issues arise, we take those seriously because that goes back to safe schools. If we don't have safe schools, children don't learn. So we will make sure expectations are clear. We will make sure that we have mentors and supports along the way, but at the end of the day, high expectations win the day. When you have high expectations, children meet them.
Thank you.
Earlier today, I received some information. I Googled, and yesterday the school district received information, the school board received information, okay, from the state. And the information said 19 schools received an A, 30 schools received a B, 4 schools received a D. Okay, remember I told you when I got to algebra? So if you do the math, that means 50% of the schools received C's. Okay? C's. Now you can implement, again, go back to the past and not be specific in terms of details. And look, remember what I told you about my background. I'm one of 8 children. Didn't speak English, learned English. And now English is my native tongue because I'm forgetting Spanish. My mother only had a 3rd grade education. A 3rd grade education, she was a maid. So you ask yourselves, why am I here? Thank you through the grace of God, okay? But there was a teacher or several teachers that got involved and spoke to my mother. And she encouraged us because she saw the future was education. We have to get the parents involved. We have to motivate the parents. We have to teach them how to. They helped me. They helped my mother. They helped my 8 brothers and sisters. We can do that also, but we cannot go to the past. We have to look towards the future. And we have to create this relationship between parents, students, and the educator. And then you have to build that relationship between the educator,
1
the
minute
community,
remaining.
the churches, and the businesses. I am a conservative businessman. I deal with clients. I represent clients. I help them get out of the situations. And I don't just stay in my office. I meet them. I go to where they are. I consider myself a service leader. Service means serving you. Serving you to get the best out of you so that you can teach and help the children and build. So you heard these statistics. You heard these numbers. We're not getting better. The school district continues in a decline. And I want to change that trajectory to a positive trajectory. And we can't continue to have the same people being the leaders because you're going to continue to do the same thing.
That's your time, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I have a follow-up question, Dr. Carlin, and it concerns me about purging the low-performing students via discipline during the standardized testing times to enhance the school performance. Because you have a lot of them, they're not performing well, but then they're given these tests, and they don't do well with testing.
So what is your question?
The question
I'm sorry, I
is,
missed your question.
how are you going to deal with those who are not performing to the max?
Absolutely. Well, let's just be honest. Where we're at as a state is that children receive instruction on the Florida benchmarks, and then there are 3 tests during the school year that are required by the state of Florida. We call that the benchmark testing or progress monitoring testing, okay? So all children are required to take those tests, and really the purpose is to see how they're doing. So the beginning of the year, we do a little dipstick. If you use the oil, checking the oil in your car analogy, how are children doing through the summer? Did they have summer learning loss? Where are they landing in the fall? And then teachers use that information to drive instruction, to make their plans for how children can do better. And we disaggregate that data. We look at how are different levels of children doing. So if I'm a child and I come in and I've lost a bunch of ground over the summer, then we want to implement some of those strategies I talked about before to accelerate learning, to make more time. Maybe we, in middle school or high school, maybe we double block them in either English, language arts, or math, which means they get a double dose of that during the day. Because remember, the research says only two things that move achievement forward: a high-quality teacher and more time. So again, it's not my opinion. This is what the research shows us. So making sure that teachers are using that data from those 3 tests, one in the fall, one middle of the year, one at the end of the year, to flex the strategies that happen. So basically, if I'm a child, like you described, who is not doing well, I might be a level 1 student, then it's incumbent upon my teaching team to look and see, why is Denise not doing well? What are those skill gaps? Where is she falling short? And then create a plan to supplement that, to make sure that I don't stay stuck in a level 1. So that is the job of the educator in conjunction with their school leader. Our job at the district office is to set the expectation and to provide the tools necessary. Remember I talked about the 180 teacher vacancy problem we have? That's not a school issue. That's a district issue.
1 minute remaining.
We need to make sure that we have appropriate pay for teachers and that we are improving working conditions, clearing barriers for teachers so they can teach and children can learn. And when we do those types of things at the district office, when we build systems of support for our children that are coming in with more mental health issues than ever, we have children that have been traumatized by the hurricane, they've missed instructional time due to COVID. When we do things differently, when we build more time and provide high-quality teachers, that changes on a dime. That's what I would do to address our students who are not achieving. Give them more time with a high-quality teacher.
So apparently research hasn't been working. And apparently the school district and their ideas and their theories have not been working because we're still getting the same results. So we have to break that glass and start thinking differently. We have to start thinking differently, which means this: you got to open the doors. You got to go to where they are. You got to go to where they are so they can feel comfortable. I didn't speak English. The teachers went to where I was. The administration went to where I was, or at least closer to me. And guess what? I was in a bad school. They used to call it ALC here. Now it's, I guess it's Success School or something to that effect, okay? It doesn't matter, it's still the same school, okay? And you know what? I was in that bad school. So you have the research and you have my experiences. How did I get to where I am? Again, there was an after-school program where we got to do homework, we were tutored, and we played sports and did extracurricular activities. We have the resources, we have the space. That's part of the reason that I evolved and became a lawyer, because people cared and people loved me. The person that I owe so much to, his name is John Simon. He wrote a book called To Be Somebody, and it included me in that book. If you want to look it up, John Simon, To Be Somebody. Okay? That title encouraged me. He encouraged me. Other students encouraged me. And the students that tutored me came from colleges and universities. We can use FGCU students to come here and be role models. We can use the professors to come here and role models. I bet you that each minister can write an email, quick email, to the president or to some faculty or to some department to say, hey, listen, I need this, this, and that. And they'll be more than willing to do that. That's how I became who I am, because others cared for me. Others cared for me, and others went out of their way to make a change. And I thank God every day. And I'm here to make that change, to help build and make it better for everybody, not just one person or one group, but for everybody. And I believe that God blessed me with that ability.
And it's your time, sir.
Thank you.
In the interest of time, thank you. Thank you to our candidates. We're going to move on to our next category. Again, I want to encourage you, write your questions if you would like to hear more discussion on the categories that we are going through. I made a notation. I do want to revisit the disparity gap in achievement when we have our questioning from the floor. So we want to encourage our streaming audience and our live audience to do the same as we work our way through these scripted questions. The third category we want to have a discussion on is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I want everyone to take a deep breath and say that phrase because it's being wiped out of the vernacular in far too many settings, and yet it's a relevant conversation to have. So this is the next category, and Dr. Blakely has the lead question.
Thank you. This is to candidate Arias. How would you ensure that the district schools are inclusive, supportive of diverse cultural backgrounds, acknowledges and values the multicultural differences that all students bring into the classroom, especially in light of diversity legislation?
Thank you for the question. Well, the obvious thing is that I'm Black, I'm Hispanic, okay? So I support diversity for obvious reasons, okay? So looking at that issue, okay, 50% of the students' population is Hispanic or bilingual, okay? 13% is African American. You have 3% that's Asian. And then you have another percent of others, right? How can we think differently than to support diversity, equality, and inclusiveness? Okay? Don't butcher the words. They're pretty clear. Diversity, equality, inclusiveness. I fit in all of those categories. I would be shooting myself in the foot if I didn't. And I hope that everyone here agrees with that because it's all inclusive. Then the other thing is this. When you're hiring leaders, you have to take that into consideration because of the population that we have in the school district. We need role models, positive role models, that have a lot of experiences and have diverse backgrounds. Okay. Now, we recently created 4 assistant superintendents, paying over $100,000 each. Okay? And guess what? I don't think anyone knew about that, and I don't think anyone had any involvement in making recommendations as to who. So that's what I mean. I'm going to go out to you, you're going to participate so that we can get better results. Not the same old thing, doing it over and over again, expecting a different result. We have to change. We have to change. We're only successful is if we are inclusive and work with each other to improve and get higher achievement. When I turn 85, if God blesses me and my wife to reach that age, we're going to need those kids, those students. And I tell them, you may be wheeling me around in a wheelchair.
1 minute
Okay?
remaining.
And I hope that that child is going to have the expertise, the experience to push me around, and if something happens to me and I stop breathing, they will know CPR. Okay? And we can't say, oh, he didn't learn CPR. No, the expectation is that he or she knows CPR. So that's the expectation. You're going to expect us as leaders to do the right thing and stop doing things the same way and getting the same result. Because, again, that's the definition of insanity. We have to change. and being service-oriented leaders, meaning leading from the back, leading from the middle, and leading from the front. You can't always lead from the front with a hammer. You have to lead
That is your time, sir.
in service. Thank you.
To candidate Carlin, how would you ensure that the district's schools are inclusive, supportive of diverse cultural backgrounds, acknowledges and values the multicultural differences that all students bring into the classroom, especially in light of current diversity legislation?
Yep, so it starts with something that I've always held near and dear to my heart, and that is that all students and all staff are to be respected, period, no exceptions. And when we think about our students, we want to make sure that all of them, every single student, we have high expectations for them. That is the only right thing to do. And to make sure that all of our children have opportunities. So do all of our children know about, in high school, the advanced coursework that's available, from IB to ACE to advanced classes to any of those enrichment types of classes to help them be successful? We want to make sure that they are prepared, well prepared for their career path. Some may choose to go to higher ed, some may choose trade school, some may choose to go right to work, some may choose the military. Our job is to make sure, A, that everybody is treated with respect, and B, that everybody has an opportunity for success. I will tell you also, in our curriculum, we teach the Florida benchmarks. That's the curriculum given to us by the state of Florida, by the Department of Education. And if you dive into those benchmarks, you see opportunities for children to learn through literature, through history. You see children with opportunities to learn about a wide array of folks. People that look like them, people that look like me, people that look like you, people that look like anybody out there, like the children. We want to make sure that they have an opportunity to read, to learn, to benefit from history, and to make sure that they're exposed to a wide variety of folks and a wide variety of experiences, because guess what? When they get out into the real world, like we always talk about, they're going to encounter a wide variety of folks. And so we want to make sure while they're in school, they have the opportunity to learn about the valuable contributions that our leaders have made, both historically and currently.
I think I'll take moderator privilege and interject a question based on comments you just made, Dr. Carlin, in regards to the state benchmarks and there being, I forget your exact phrase, but a wide variety of representation in those book benchmarks as pertain to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the question is this: given the recent controversies surrounding Florida's Stop Woke Act, which restricts how race and diversity are addressed in schools, what policies would you create to either adhere to this legislation or make certain that there is representation in those book benchmarks of representative of this student diversity?
Sure. So let me be abundantly clear. As the Chief Executive Officer of the school district, you take an oath to adhere to the law. And in my administration, we will always follow the law. That is the only appropriate thing to do. And to ensure, my other responsibility is to ensure that schools are operating within the boundaries of the law. I will tell you, when you open up those benchmarks and you take a look, there are a wide array of leaders, folks that have come from all walks of life. For example, when we look at our kindergarten, first grade curriculum, we see leaders, we see presidents, we see other leaders that represent who is in our classrooms. Okay, Victor outlined for you before the demographics in our schools, and he's right. There is, the majority of our students are Hispanic at this point. So when you dive into those benchmarks, and I invite you to do that, go to the Florida Department of Education, you will see that they are reading and learning about a wide array of folks, not only in literature, the literature benchmarks and the reading and ELA benchmarks, but also in history. So I encourage you to go to the Department of Education, take a look at those benchmarks, and you'll see for yourself that there are a wide array of leaders and others that children study about in history and in literature.
And before we move to the next distinct question, we want to give candidate areas an opportunity to respond to the same question in regards to the controversies surrounding the Stop Woke Act, which restricts how race and diversity are addressed in schools. What policies would you create to adhere to the legislation and or make certain that diversity is reflected in those benchmarks? And then we'll be able to go to the next question, I believe, which is a lead-in and builds on this particular one.
Okay, first of all, I will not allow any politics in our schools. I will not allow politics in our schools. Schools are for learning. I will protect and support every teacher against any politician or anyone coming into the school district waving that flag of politics. Now, there are things that are going on, and I'm trying to answer the question, but I'm being sincere about this. What on earth is woke? I don't have the slightest idea what it is. Okay? It's just an expression. And don't give any expression a platform because it divides us. It divides us. We are here, we are all here to teach each and every child, regardless of where they are, where they come from. Now, Project 2025, in connection with the woke, right? It says they're going to do away with the Department of Education. And you know what? That's not, let's just say that's not that extreme. However, they're also going to say they're going to do away with breakfast and lunch for children, right? And again, obviously, I can't allow that because I am one of those children that was blessed to be able, as a matter of fact, the best thing was to run to school and have breakfast because they had cereal and milk. Not knowing how bad it was for you, but it was there. The best thing was to have lunch for children. Why? Because without food, we're not going to learn anything.
1 minute, please.
Okay? The other thing is this. I found out today that free constitutional books or booklets were given to children. And guess where it came from? It said the Heritage Foundation, which is a conservative think tank, basically. Now, if I was in the school district, hey, oh, by the way, I'm an attorney, 33 years, I would be suing the heck out of that organization for bringing in stuff like that, okay? If you want to bring the Constitution, absolutely. Bring the Constitution, we'll be happy to give it to every child, but not with this symbol.
That's your time, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Your comments, I believe, provide a natural segue into the next question under this category. Dr. Anderson, this is your question, please.
Okay, this is for candidate Carlin. As an educator, what is your opinion regarding the controversy over the AP African American History course being restricted in Florida and the rise in book challenges on topics like race and social studies, standards that suggest that enslaved people benefited from slavery?
So, yes, we have many issues to cover, and I know I only have a few minutes, so let me start at it. The very first thing that is very important to know is that as the superintendent, you are bound to follow the law, and it is a requirement to ensure that our schools operate within the boundaries of the law. As to the book banning, let's talk about that for a moment. There is a law that says children may not read pornography or sexually explicit content in books. I will tell you, I do believe the school district of Lee County and the board came up with a common sense approach to addressing that law. And it goes like this. A parent receives a permission form. You have three choices. You can say, my child has unfettered access to every single classroom library book as well as the media center books. And that would be a choice I can make as a parent. I can say, I want my child to read each and every book except for the challenge books. Or I have the parental right to say, I don't want my children reading the books at school. I'm going to provide the books. Okay? So parents have a choice in what they're doing. Now, in Lee County, we have removed 6 books from the shelves. Our sister county to the south, for example, has removed hundreds of books. That's why I say there's the law. We're sworn to follow the law, but there are ways to implement the law that are less impactful in that regard. And I want to make it abundantly clear as it pertains to our social studies benchmark relative to enslaved people benefiting from slavery. That is absolutely wrong in every way, shape, and form. There is no way that any enslaved person benefited from slavery, and it is absolutely ridiculous. Period.
Thank you.
So, addressing this new procedure or questionnaire or survey that the school board created, okay? So, about banning books. And they were only able to ban 4 to 6 books. Now, then the question becomes who or how many parents or community leaders or the community were involved in that process, okay? Because those questions to me, first, obviously my mother would not have understood it. And I think first 40% of the parents would not have understood it. Okay, so here's, when I was at the Lee County School District, when I was the attorney for the Lee County School District, and also remember that I litigate many cases against the school district, and every one of them, they have made corrections. So the thing is, all you have to do is this, okay? If you get a list of all the books, which everyone has access to, and there's a book that you don't agree with, right? There's a procedure in place. You don't have to be political. There's a procedure in place. You check off the book, and you go to the principal, start off at the principal, and then the next step is appeal if you're not satisfied with the decision that the principal made. And then you move up to administration. There should be a hearing officer if it's necessary to determine whether or not that book is and should be in there or it's not. So you're dealing with a constitutional question. And then if you're not satisfied with the school district's decision, you can, of course, go to circuit court or go to federal court. That's the process, okay? That's the process that works for everybody. You don't have to go beyond that. Just respect that process, that rule. And I believe that process is still there since I was the attorney so many years ago. And I believe that process is still there because it hasn't been challenged in court. So it makes sense.
1 minute remaining.
And it involves all of us. And we all have the same opportunity to make that appeal of that book. But you cannot allow one parent, 10 parents, to grab books and intimidate teachers and intimidate other staff to try to be heard when we have a procedure. Respect the procedure. Respect everybody. And if you're not happy, you went through the process, go take it to court. That's the only way we're going to continue to remain sane. Otherwise, anytime anyone screams, we're going to jump and react. when we shouldn't. We say, here it is. There's a three-press process. Go, add it, people are neutral, they'll be open, okay? And you know what? Let's add another layer to the process.
You finish your thought, but that's your time.
Yes. Let's also add public individuals to serve on those committees to determine whether or not the book should be banned or should stay in there. Again, you need involvement from the community. And that doesn't work, there you go. Hire me or hire another attorney and appeal.
We want to encourage you, the audience, to write your questions so we can get some follow-up on these very informative responses, particularly where the ideas of the candidates seemingly are differentiated. At this time, we're going to ask questionnaire Gwen Giddings to insert a question in the diversity and equity and inclusion category.
Okay, and Pastor, we are using panel privilege here to reword one of the questions just a little bit because we feel that you've pretty much answered how it affects the children. So we've reworded the question to say, how will you ensure that staff and administration reflect the demographic makeup of the district to ensure that students receive comprehensive education that acknowledges and values the rich diversity that all the students bring to the classroom? Is that, oh, I'm sorry. We're starting with candidate Arias.
How would I ensure? And I'm going to go back to my original points. Getting parents involved, okay? And the parents will help us ensure that they're being heard and that they're participating. So you go to Tice Elementary, right, where I would say probably 85% of the students are non-English speaking students. And I would probably say that the majority are from Guatemala. Okay, because I have clients from that country. So I'm just using that as an example, right? And you know what? I have visited Guatemala many times, just like I visited Haiti. I visited a lot of countries because I have clients out there, right? So I noticed one thing in terms of from Guatemala. They tend to be very, very humble people. Okay? And when I was out there, they would carry their newborns in this sack, okay, in the sack. And that was about 20 years ago. And then I noticed that that idea came to the United States. And now other parents carry their children in sacks. So the point that I'm making is that the more we encourage people to participate, the better and the higher achievers that their children will be. Because we can learn from each other. That's the whole point, learn from each other. And the reason why I took Tice is because I believe they have one of those traditional dances where people from families from Guatemala come in their attire so we can see. So we have to be inclusive because we all have different experiences and we can learn from one another. But we have to allow it.
1 minute
and
remaining.
we have to encourage it. That's the way that we are going to ensure success for each and every child. We have to encourage the parents, encourage the students. And of course, going backwards a little bit in terms of achievement, we have to allow for kids, if they fail once, hey, it's no big deal. You can try again. We have to encourage the kids. that if they are not successful the first time, they can try again. And again, it's not the end of the world. They can still shoot for the stars. It may hopefully fall on the moon. But we still have to encourage.
That is your time, sir.
Thank you.
And if I may follow up just before we get to Dr. Carlin, we're looking for ensuring that staff and administration, because they are the leaders that are going to follow through the legislation and follow through the curriculum. So how would you ensure that the staff and administrators are, that they will make sure that our children receive a
In the
college
interest of time,
campus?
we will allow 30 seconds for this response.
Well, how will I ensure that the administration, again, is to probably hire a more diverse staff, more diverse people, so they can look like the community. That's not to say that they're any less or they're not qualified. I'm going to make sure that they're qualified, but we have to go out of our zone and stop continuing to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. We have to get out of it. We have to get out of it. We have to change. So
Thank you, sir, for that more directed
That's what I will.
response to the question.
Thank you. Dr. Carlin, do you need it repeated?
I'm almost set. Thank you very much. I'm good with it. So we need to acknowledge that the demographics of Lee County have changed significantly over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and that becomes primarily the hiring pool from which school districts, businesses, other organizations hire. So we have to acknowledge that that has changed. My answer here is very simple. We want to hire the very best person for the job. That is absolutely critical. And when we get to hire from Southwest Florida, we know that our demographics have changed. And so my standard for hiring will always be find a person of integrity, also find a person who is highly skilled and able to do the job. And that's how I'll hire.
Okay, then with that, then, if there's no follow-up to that response, that concludes our equity and diversity, equity, and inclusion category. We're going to move on to our parental and community engagement. In the interest of time, we are now, candidates, going to challenge you with providing a concise answer in 2 minutes as opposed to 3, because we very much would love to get through these categories and not have too late of an evening here tonight. So thank you all. Thank you both so very much. Dr. Blakely, you have the lead question in this category.
Again, this category is for parental and community engagement. So for candidate Carlin, in light of the proposed Amendment 1 here in Lee County to establish partisan elections of school board members, how would you include all parental and community voices in decisions made by the Lee County School Board?
Yep, so you may be familiar with Amendment 1, which is going to be on our ballot on November 5th. And it is legislation that is proposed to move our school board elections to become partisan. And so that will be something that will be decided by the voters. And so we just encourage you to vote how you believe on November 5th. As it pertains to parental and community involvement, I think you'll find agreement among both candidates that that is essential. We know that when a child has a parent, a guardian who is standing behind them, beside them, alongside of them, the child is going to be more successful. There's no question, behaviorally, academically, no question that child will be more successful. So what do we do to encourage that? Well, if you start at the school level, we know that schools have PTOs, PTAs, we have booster clubs, we have lots of ways, school advisory committees, for parents to and community members to voice their opinion at the school level. At the district level, we have district committees. We have district advisory committees, which are comprised of one person from each school advisory committee to come to the district office or to appear by Zoom and to be able to weigh in on a wide variety of policies,
30
practices,
seconds,
things
please.
we're going to be implementing. So we encourage that. And I will tell you, I will have an open door policy. If parents are working with schools and they can't get an issue resolved, they can come to me, call my office, and we'll meet with them, and we will get the issue resolved. So I look forward to engaging with our families.
Thank you. Again, the question stated, in light of proposed Amendment 1 here in Lee County to establish partisan elections of school board members, how would you include all parental and community voices in decisions made by the Lee County School Board?
First of all, I'm against that amendment. Why? Because it brings more politics into the schools. If you have nonpartisan elections, nonpartisan, that means everybody, every party gets involved in the election. So, excuse me if you're against the idea, but I don't like the idea. And hopefully you will not vote for that amendment, okay? Because again, it creates more politics and it's not necessary. Also, I wish this position was nonpartisan. Why should we run as a party? We're here to teach our children, and they're all the same. They should all be treated the same. Not one Republican, one Democrat, one independent, one non-affiliate. They're all children. So in 4 years, hopefully there will be another initiative saying that the superintendent of schools election is going to be nonpartisan, so we can all participate. Advisory committees. Is there anyone here on an advisory committee? Okay. Well, you don't count because you're on the board.
30 seconds.
Ms. Jordan. One person raised their hand. One person out of over 100, right? Again, we have to encourage people to participate. That's part of the problem. You create these committees, you have friends that are going to vote the same way that you do, and again, you're going to continue to get the same result. You're going to continue to have the same people running the show and getting the same result. So it's going to continue to decline. Student achievement will continue to decline.
That is your time, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Anderson?
Candidate Harris, how accessible will you be to parents who have concerns? That's part of question. Second part of this question is, what is the best way for parents to communicate with you? That's a two-part question.
Sure. Okay. The best way to get in touch with me, and I think the best way to do it, is by texting. And texting, the reason why I say texting is that just about everyone has a cell phone. And we all have to participate and allow and engage with the technology that we have. And I think texting is the most, obviously, the most accessible system that we have. Also, like I said it before, I'm going to be going out to churches. I'm going to be going out to different community centers. I'm going to be going to the community. I'm going to be going to businesses to get them to participate and get involved. That hasn't been happening. But we have to change. We have to change to get better results. And I'm always available, right? Hey, here it is. I wanted to avoid filing a complaint against the school district. So there's this thing on the school board website that says, if you have a complaint, file it, right? So I filed it, I sent it, and I said, let me have my client send it also. And guess what? No response. So I had no choice but to file a complaint in schools, something that could have been avoided. So what's the point, again, of having technology
30 seconds.
When we're not embracing it and showing the parents and the community how to use it? So we're spending millions of dollars to get these apps, okay? Oh, there's another app. You can know where your kid is on the bus at any time during the day, anytime. And guess what? No one knows how to use it. So what's the point? Okay? You know what I expect? I expect every parent to know the name of the bus driver. I expect every parent to know the name of the principal and their teachers.
That is your time, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Moderator, I'm looking for the first part of this candidate Aris, how accessible will you be to parents who have concerns?
I'll repeat it. I will be accessible.
How?
I will continue to be accessible. They can text me. They can call me. And you know what? I will be in the community. And there's nothing else that I can say or do outside of be myself and be accessible like I have been as an attorney to all of my clients. I came here 25 years ago without knowing anybody. And now I have a successful law practice. Why? Because I am accessible. I go to where my clients are when they need me there. I go to hospitals. I go to their homes.
In the interest of fairness and time, if I may use this term, asked and answered. So,
Touche.
And
touche.
reiterated.
So, thank you very much. So, how accessible? How will I make myself accessible? Well, I've lived here in Lee County for 55 years. I have taught numerous children, worked with an inordinate amount of staff, and interacted with parents for years and years and years, community members. So, when you live somewhere for 55 years, people get to know you a little bit. And I see several friends, many friends in the audience tonight that have interacted with me over the years. They know how I'm going to react. They know that I have an open door policy because they've used it. They knew when I was chief of staff, they could call me, they could text me, they would see me in the community. They knew how to get hold of me. So I think what I would say to this is the community knows, when you live somewhere for a long time, they know how to get to you. As a superintendent, I think it's incumbent upon us to not only work with our parents and our community to understand that if there's a problem at a school, where do we start? We start with the teacher. If there's an issue in the classroom, we work through the principal. But if there's not a resolution, you call me, and we will get to the bottom of the issue. So being present, being in the community, being everywhere all the time, just like I'm doing on the campaign trail, just like I've done for the 32 years that I worked for this school district, I will be accessible, and people know how to get hold of me. And if they don't, on week 1, we will make sure that that is announced.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm next. And I really like the fact that this question is under parental and community engagement, because the language barrier does affect us all and all of the community. So the question is, we have many students for whom English is not their first language, and all are not getting comprehensive and timely services or aid in their education. How will you address this deficit?
So it starts with high expectations for all learners. Our English language learners, like all of our students, deserve the opportunity to be successful. And if we're going to talk about services that are needed for children, it starts with what is the plan, right? So if we know, and let's just say all of us got on a plane and we rode over to Germany tonight, right? So we're all literate. We have our English and other languages under our belt. But if you don't speak German, we get off the plane, we're looking for somebody to help us, throw us a lifeline, give us some more time, and a high-quality teacher to teach us German. And we will learn it. Coming back to Lee County, we have children that speak 149 different languages. That challenge is tremendous, but we do know what works. There are strategies called PSYOP strategies, which are just great teaching strategies, vocabulary, explicit vocabulary instruction, giving children background knowledge, helping them understand what a word means, scaffolding, metacognition strategies. All of those strategies work, and at the schools that use PSYOP strategies, you see the results pay off. When we don't, we see lack of achievement. So what are we going to do? We want to make sure all of our teachers have PSYOP training. We want to make sure that children are provided with adequate time and appropriate instruction that will help move their achievement forward. And by the way, we also want to make sure families are learning English. And we do have some of that going on in our district right now. We need to make sure that that is available. For the parents that want to learn English, we want to make sure we provide those opportunities. So that's how we get instruction and achievement moving forward for our ELL students.
And candidate areas, do you need it repeated?
No, because I lived it.
Okay. So is that your answer? I'm sorry.
Well, it could be my answer, but let's look at this seriously, right? Recently, and this is connected. I'll connect it. Recently, the school district took a survey to try to find out why they continue to decline and why everybody's unsatisfactory with the school district and the outcomes and the leadership and the treatment. And the majority of the people checked off that they felt isolated, especially the teachers. Isolated. So what's the answer to being isolated? Is basically you're not caring for me or calling me or supporting me or helping me when I ask for it. And you're not showing love and support. That's the problem with the schools, with the leadership. They're not supporting the teachers. They're not backing them up. They're not being there when they are called, the leadership. So I'm proposing to be more active. Be there when they need you, okay? Here's another example. I went to a school, and an SRO, we were talking, and he says, hey, man, these metal detectors work sometimes, they don't work all the time. And we're talking about school safety, right? So if it's not working, why don't you call them? Or why aren't you trained to fix the problem? He says, I have called them.
20
They don't
seconds.
respond. So there's a problem with leadership. You're calling for help and they're not responding. So we need people in leadership positions that will respond, not in emergencies all the time, okay, but when they're needed, not just for the administration,
That's your time,
but for
sir.
everybody. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we are going to continue to the next category, and we'll continue with 2-minute responses. And the next category is school safety, after which you will be put to the test because we will have to go to a speed round of responses of 1 minute, simply to give you an opportunity to address some of these important issues in some of these important areas and to allow for time from our audience to retain their question. And we already have a dozen questions in from our streaming audience, so we thank them for that as well. So the first question in the school safety category, Dr. Anderson.
This is for candidate Harris. In light of the national epidemic of school shootings, 400 plus since 1999, what keeps you up at night regarding school safety? And beyond the Guardian program and metal detectors in schools, what solution will you offer to keep schools safe in Lee County?
I will train all the SROs on how to use and fix the metal detectors. That's simple, that's straightforward, okay? And that's being truthful. Also, and let's look towards the future, right? It was mentioned that we've had hurricanes. We just got over COVID. I think, and the reason why this comes up is because I was discussing this issue with my daughter, who's a senior, as I stated before, in high school here. And she said, you know what? You should offer mental health evaluations, assessments for the children with the support of the parents and authorization of the parents. You know what? Mental health evaluations and assessments, because you know what? Look, we knew when we were growing up who was crazy, excuse the language, okay? What I mean by that is that we knew the kids that needed more help. We know them. And you know what's incredible is that we have resources outside of the community that can provide that help and help the school district and help the classroom teacher and help that principal. So a mass shooting will not happen again. But again, we have to love them, we have to support them, we have to be available to them in order to get better results. We have to. If not, we're going to continue to do the same things over and over and over again and not be prepared, and then all of a sudden you're surprised when something crazy happens.
30 seconds.
When you knew, okay, that it was coming. So before it comes, implement. Implement. Don't wait until the disaster occurs. Even hurricanes we can prepare for. Why can't we prepare for violence, unfortunately? And students or schools and teachers going off. And also remember, when I came here 25 years ago, unfortunately, the superintendent had been shot and killed in his office. Hey, this stuff happens and we got to prepare for it, which means that we have to treat each other better.
Time, sir.
So what keeps me up at night relative to school safety, and I will absolutely agree, an active shooter on campus. And I'm no different than any of you. I'm sure that's what keeps you up at night as well. We watch the national news, we see what happens, and that is absolutely, I think, what would keep any parent, any superintendent up at night. What can we do to prevent it? When I was chief of staff, I had the ability to hire an executive director for school safety, and we had a gentleman who had been in the job, retired. We had an opportunity to bring in a law enforcement officer, somebody who had been actually the police chief in the city of Cape Coral, and we hired him. He had a tremendous amount of experience. And instead of continuing to do the same thing, as my opponents talked about, we did some things differently. We were very not metal detectors, but weapons detection systems. So when you walk through, you're not buzzing or going off. It shows you actually where a potential weapon is placed, and we can address that. We had middle schools that were getting very large. I have a wonderful relationship with law enforcement in this area, again, because I've been here for a while. They worked with me as chief of staff. They called me at 2 a.m. They called me at 7 a.m. They knew I picked up the phone. We had an opportunity to increase the number of SROs, our school resource officers, in some of our larger middle schools. We did that. We had an opportunity to bring weapons detection systems to seal the envelope. You don't worry about flying on a plane. You don't worry about going to a courthouse because they have sealed the envelope. Weapons don't make it onto those campuses. We knew if we could seal the envelope, we knew if we had the appropriate amount of resource officers, including guardians and others, we could keep the schools safer. And I'm going to tell you a quick story in 20 seconds or less. Last year, I had the opportunity to meet with Max Schachter, who lost his child in the Parkland mass shooting. I asked him, what is the single most important thing that needs to happen in schools? He said, threat assessments. When a child makes a threat, take them seriously. Assess their mental health, take a look at their family history, and make sure you put a plan into place for that child. Because if they said it, they could mean it. You need to take every one of them seriously. And we will in my administration.
Thank you. Dr. Blakely?
Continue with school safety. Candidate Carlin, how do you plan to foster a positive school culture that supports both students and staff?
Yep, starts with that basic premise of mutual respect, and that's where we start. We always want to make sure that we have a school culture, a district culture that incorporates respect for our staff, our students, our parents, our community members. How do you build that? I think as the leader, you model it. People have known me for years. They know how I'm going to react. I have an open door policy. You can call me. You can question. You can challenge. I won't take offense to that because 9 times out of 10, when somebody's challenging thinking, they're actually helping to push you to a better solution. So my door is always open. I try to model the way, but I will tell you also, we want to talk about leaders. We want leaders in this school system that are servant leaders, that aren't about their ego. They're about serving others, serving the staff, serving the children, serving the families. And when we have that happening, we have positive school cultures. When we have a culture of mutual respect, we have a positive school culture. When the expectations are clear and everybody understands the rules, we have a positive school culture. When we have safety in our schools and orderliness, that also contributes to a positive school culture.
Thank you.
Candidate Ayers.
And like I stated before, we have to change the culture, right? And we have to treat everyone with respect. Everybody with respect, treat everyone the same, okay? Now, I have basically things that are called low-hanging fruit. Of course, as you know, I'm involved in the community, and I also represent a lot of people. And I'll give you examples after examples after examples as to why, not so much why, but why are they being treated differently. Here's an example. I have a parent who has 2 kids, 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, and they were not allowed in school for some reason. And I knew the law. They were supposed to at least allow them at 4 years old because there's preschool, right? So I helped them. I helped them with the telephone and schedule an appointment. But before we scheduled an appointment, we just showed up to register the kids. 95 degrees, it's Florida, right? So we go over there, and there are about 100 to 200 people waiting outside in a line. What kind of nonsense is that? Then they said, here's the number, call and make an appointment. Okay, cool. We called and made an appointment. We showed up at 10 o'clock. Guess what? There are 200 plus people waiting outside in the heat. Okay? You don't have to be, just open your eyes.
30 seconds.
That's a simple change. You want to treat people with respect? Treat everybody with respect. And you know what they can do? Easily. How often does the school board meet? Once a week in the evening for the general meetings. You know how many seats the auditorium or the school board holds? Why can't they just change it and have those parents wait inside in an air-conditioned space that is not generally used, okay? It's empty half the time, and allow them to wait there so they can get their turn and have their kids registered instead of waiting outside. And I was sweating like a pig, okay, because I had a jacket on and a shirt.
20 seconds, please.
And all they had to do was open it up so we can be in there and be treated with respect, right? Respect. You respect the bus driver, you respect the parent, you respect the teacher, the principal,
And
the
that is
custodian
your time,
staff,
sir.
everybody. Treat everybody the same.
Okay. For the sake of time, Pastor, we were looking at the next question, which basically deals with mental health, which they have both touched on.
Agreed.
So with your permission, can we move on to the next category?
Agreed. We will move on to the teacher recruitment and retention. And as I indicated, this is your speed round. You get 1 minute, so be concise.
Okay, and for candidate Carlin, the first question is, last year, Lee County District lost approximately 700 teachers. With the challenge of retaining effective educators, what steps would you take to support and retain highly effective teachers and effective employees?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's a very important one and one of my highest priorities. So in order to find out what will keep them, you had to ask them. And so that's what I've spent the last year doing, is asking teachers after school, meeting with them for coffee, meeting with them through the summer. And the bottom line is 2 things. Make sure our pay is commensurate with our surrounding counties, and make sure that our working conditions are favorable. We want to make sure that when children misbehave, that we're very clear on what the expectations are, and when they need mental health or other supports, we provide those. Take a look at Franklin Park
30
Elementary.
seconds.
We just opened a school that has all kinds of supports through the United Way and mental health support going into that school for the children that need it. Those are the types of things we can do to ensure that our students' needs are being met, and by the way, we'll keep teachers longer.
And may
Thank
I
you.
do a quick follow-up to that? Collier County just raised their teacher salaries very much over ours. And can you just add to this question what you will do to keep them down on this farm?
Sure, and it's a legitimate problem because I'm hearing upwards of a third of the teachers that teach in Collier County reside actually in Lee County. So it is a real problem. If we could recruit those teachers back, we'd eliminate our teacher vacancy issue, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to go line by line through the budget, just like we do at home. We're going to say, these are the must-dos, these are the nice-to-dos. We can make anything happen in a $2.7 billion budget as long as we center it and align it with our priorities. Teacher pay is a priority. In order to keep good teachers, we need to make sure their pay is competitive.
Thank you.
Okay, and candidate areas, basically we're asking approximately 700 teachers we've lost. What is the challenge? With the challenge of retaining effective educators, how would you support to retain highly effective teachers and effective employees, and adding the last part about how you will handle the increase in salaries in Collier?
We'll give you a minute and a half, sir.
Thank you very
That
much.
second part.
So first we have to change our bad reputation of not supporting our teachers, okay? We have to change that and be supportive of teachers so they won't feel isolated, as the survey said. Support our teachers. Second, again, the low-hanging fruit. Here in Lee County, they charge, or they tell teachers and all applicants, okay, to pay for their background checks. And that's about $300 to $400, $500 bucks, let's just say, okay? They pay for that. Do away with that. That doesn't make any sense because Collier County and Charlotte County don't require individuals, applicants, to pay for the background check, right? So, improve our reputation, get rid of that background check, and then, right, remember those 4 people that they had hired to be whatever assistant superintendents for whatever reason? That's $500,000 that could be used towards increasing teacher pay. So first, we have to get into the weeds.
30 seconds.
Get into the weeds and find out where all the money is going. Okay, and then we can start saying, okay, let's be competitive and let's raise the salaries. And definitely, I'm for raising the salaries, but first we have to find out where all the other money has gone to justify raising the salaries.
That is your time, sir. Thank you.
Continue with teacher recruitment and retention. Candidate Aries, what is your approach to accountability to hold faculty and administration accountable for student success on district and state assessments?
Well, we have to, of course, look at the results. And then from the results, we create a plan, an improvement plan for every child. And during that process, we have to, again, go outside of the school and involve the community to get involved in the education of that child. And we especially have to encourage the parents to participate. Here's an example, right? So like I said before, everyone has a cell phone. And when we drop off our kids at school, parents are in their vehicles waiting for 45 minutes. That's just idle time where they're not being productive. So why not have teachers better connected with the parents and the child by texting them and teaching them, and
30
again,
seconds.
embracing technology. I lived it, I've been through it, except we didn't have cell phones. Okay? So I believe I'm more than qualified and better prepared to assume the position of superintendent of Lee County Schools because of my experiences, because of my successes, because of my involvement in the community, and my heart and my love for God.
Time, sir.
Candidate Carlin.
Thank you.
The question, what is your approach to accountability to hold faculty and administration accountable for student success on the district and state assessment?
So accountability starts at the top. It starts with me. If I'm elected as your superintendent, I am ultimately accountable and responsible. And if in 4 years we haven't turned around student achievement, you can fire me. I'll probably fire myself. If I don't achieve the goals, I'll walk away and say, you know what, Carlin, you tried it, you didn't do it. But that's not going to happen, and here's why. Number one, we know what works. We know what works. We have schools throughout this county that have made tremendous strides, that have moved from F's or D's to A's and B's. We've seen it happen year after year after year. And it goes back to that basic premise. What am I going to do to hold people responsible? Hold myself responsible for making sure we have leaders that are skilled as instructional leaders. We have central office that knows how to help those leaders, and we provide training for teachers and remove barriers for teachers. When we do that, teachers will be more successful, children will be more successful.
Thank you. And this is our final category. After almost 2 hours of questioning, you guys are holding up well. We'll get to our audience momentarily and our streaming audience. So please have your questions ready so that we can move expeditiously. The final category is education funding. There are only 2 questions in this category, and you get 1 minute.
Directed to candidate Carlin, the school district of Lee County's annual budget is over $2 billion. What changes, if any, would you make to the budget if you are elected as superintendent of schools?
Thank you. Yes. So what change I will make? We will make sure that our number 1 priority is student learning and student safety. In order to do that, we need to continue to find dollars in our budget to support those priorities. We will go line by line. That's what I'll change. We'll go line by line through the budget, find the nice to-dos, put those on a shelf, look at the must-dos, and make those happen. A must-do is school safety and security, and making sure that our teachers are paid appropriately and also working conditions are improved. That's how we're going to keep our best teachers. That's how we're going to recruit teachers. And by the way, that's how we're going to improve student achievement.
Thank you.
In terms of that question, right? So I've been on the board of Suncoast Credit Union for the past 6 years. I was selected from Southwest Florida to serve this community at Suncoast Credit Union. Suncoast Credit Union has $18 billion in assets. It has over 1 million members. So I do budgets almost like once a month. We review audit reports. We get regulators' reports. We get all of this information that we review and make decisions on. Why am I saying that? Because I have the experience, direct experience. And we can't just stay within this circle. We have to go out of the circle to bring in other resources.
30
like
seconds.
I stated before. We have the community. We have businesses dying to help. All they have to do is to be asked. Okay? A teacher should never come out of her pocket to purchase paper or crayons or anything, because we have the community that wants better results. But we have to improve our reputation, and support and love everybody, and include everyone in everything that we do.
That is your time, sir.
Okay, I get the last word. Not exactly. The last question. And this is directed to candidate Arias. The half-cent sales tax, which supports Capitol buildings, safety and security, technology updates, maintenance, and upgrades to buildings, expires in approximately 2 years. It is a large part of the district's budget. If it is not approved by the voters, how would you address the potential budget shortfall to the district?
The 1 cent sales tax is going to expire in 2 years. Okay. Once, God willing, I'm elected to be the superintendent, I'm going to hire an audit so that we can know where every penny is coming from and it's going. Because again, accountability is one of my main priorities. Where is the money going? And then have those resources and know where they are so that we can appropriately appropriately increase teacher pay, increase not just the teachers, but also the custodians, also the bus drivers,
30 seconds, please.
everybody. But we need to know where the money is, and we need a forensic audit to make sure, before we spend, make sure where the money is so that we can send out those resources and do it appropriately. But we have to know where the money is going, and that's why each and every one of you, whether you have children in the system or not, your tax dollars pays the larger portion of our resources. The money is coming from your tax dollars, so you have to care. You have to care where the money is.
That is your time, sir.
Thank you.
I'm okay.
Okay.
Yes. So the sales surtax was approved in November of 2018, and it is good for 10 years. There was a project plan that accompanied that referendum, and it clearly delineated the 4 areas where we were going to, as a school district, spend the money, and that is on capital projects such as building new schools, deferred maintenance, addressing many of the maintenance issues that were currently happening in the school district, HVAC systems, you name it, and also to enhance school safety and technology. The first thing I would want to make sure we're doing is that we have honored our promise to the community that entrusted us with those sales tax dollars, and that would be job 1. We do have an oversight committee. I have some questions for them. We would definitely want to make sure,
30
though, that
seconds.
we are spending that money. I will tell you that my opinion is that we need to learn to live within our means. We have a lot of different options available. We mentioned public-private partnerships. We mentioned putting buildings on existing campuses to help with the growth. There may be sales tax money that is unspent that we will be able to designate toward capital issues. But I will tell you, right now, I am not bringing forward a proposal to renew the sales tax because we need to learn to live within our means, and there's a way to do it rather than on the backs of our taxpayers. That tax, by the way, disproportionately affects our lower income families. So that's important to keep in mind.
Okay, that is your time. Thank you. Let's hear it for our candidates for this 2 hours of questioning and for them sharing their vision and their plan for the school district covering the 7 categories. At this time, as we committed, we are going to open the floor for questions. If I could have my runners with the microphones, and we are going to ask of those who are asking questions, limit your commentary and ask your question. And we will give our candidates 1 minute to respond. So at this time, if your hand is up, the runners will get to you. Be patient. Let's start to my left, Mr. Kimball.
Okay. Candidate Carlin, this is directed towards you. Why should I trust you when you are endorsed by a governor that is the epitome of systemic racism in practice, who is banning books by black authors and LGBT authors, intimidating teachers, threatening citizens for practicing civil disobedience, and attacking the largest employer in the state of Florida for free speech? Why should I trust you?
Thank you for the question. And actually, I have not been endorsed by the governor, so I would like to make that very clear to the audience.
No, that was addressed to the candidate specifically, and that was her response. So let's take a question to the right here.
Yes, I just have a question, either of you, about charter schools. It wasn't mentioned, but from my understanding, they don't play by the same rules as the regular public schools. They're allowed to not allow certain students to attend schools, and if the parents don't cooperate, they can send them back to the public school. So I don't know if that's happening still, but at one time that was happening, and especially during FTE time.
Go ahead, Mr. Harris.
Unfortunately, that is still happening, where, especially as it relates to children with disabilities,
Yes,
A lot of
that's the
schools,
problem.
a lot of schools,
That's where the money's
right, a lot of schools are not accepting them. They're being very targeted and very specific. And obviously, I believe that that's a form of discrimination and a case that will come up at some point, hopefully soon. So what can we do? We can tighten the rules, but you need a supportive school board to tighten those rules. And more importantly, is to do follow-up and make sure that the rules are being followed. And there is some control over that. Again, they're rules. Yes, they're rules, but if you're not following those rules and no one is keeping your feet to the fire, it's going to continue to be done.
I'm sorry, in the interest of hearing from others, we can't have an extended dialogue, but we can give our second candidate an opportunity to respond to that question. Do you need it stated more
No,
succinctly?
I'm correct.
Okay.
I'm good, thank you. So it is true, the reason they are charters is they do get some opportunities to do some different things. And I will tell you, having been in the district for a number of years, there are a lot of charters that do a great job, but there are the occasional charter. There is the occasional charter that doesn't, and I was involved in closing one of them. I was able to get on campus without being checked. A colleague of mine, we made it all the way into a kindergarten classroom without ever being stopped. We took serious action and wound up closing that charter school. But I will also tell you there are wonderful charters. I had the opportunity to visit the Cape Coral Charter System. There's some great things going on in those schools, and the very fact that they get to do some things differently makes them a viable choice for some of the parents. So we're not going to be able to choose for all parents. I'm very supportive of school choice. I want them to follow the rules, but when they don't, then there are consequences for that.
Let me interject a question from our streaming audience, and we'll have both candidates take 1 minute at this question. We'll begin with you, Mr. Aries. The question is, the accelerated curriculum does not work for all students. The children are being tested too aggressively. The children learn 2 or 3 subjects a week and are tested on all 3 subjects in the same week. What are we going to do to make any changes to the frequent testing guidelines?
Can you hear me? Okay. So now the state requires the testing. So there's not much that we can do unless we vote people out, okay? So that we can have people more involved and engaged and reduce the testing. If you remember what I told you, that if a child fails his or her test one day, okay, we know or we hope that that child is going to take the test tomorrow or the next day, because we have to create an encouraging and a positive environment. So if you get an F, okay, and if you change the culture will say, yes, that's an F, but
30 seconds.
my goal is to reach for the stars. And I'm going to continue to reach for the stars until I get there. So you have to change the culture. It's not so much the testing. Like I said, we get people out, okay, so we can change the system. But here, we're required by state statute to test these kids and assess these kids. So if you want to change, you got to get woke out of here. You got to get others out of here. But you have to be engaged and you have to be involved.
That is your time,
and you know
sir.
that.
Thank you. Ms. Carlin?
Yes, so we'll take a look, we'll address each part of this question. One is the accelerated curriculum is not working for all of our students, and I'll share with you that I do believe in having high expectations for all children. The world has changed. The jobs for which we are preparing children have changed dramatically, and actually children that start out in elementary school, we're training them for jobs that don't even exist yet. So we do have to keep those high expectations. As for testing, There is a certain requirement for state testing. We do have the dipstick tests I told you about before, the 3 tests, the FAST tests that happen in the fall, middle of the year, and then the end of the year. And we also have some end of course testing for things like algebra, American history, that type of thing.
30 seconds.
But there are also some district assessments that we currently require, and those are not state required tests. So some of this we bring on ourselves through our district testing. So if I am elected, we will take a look at our testing cycle. We'll look at, again, the must-dos, the state requirements. We'll address the nice-to-dos, and that's the district assessments. And if we can cut back on those, I think we can strike the right balance.
Thank you. Let's take a question from my left, please.
Yes, my name is Elise Kidder-Shapansky, and I need it to be known that as a Lee County taxpayer, I am more than willing to pay for a highly effective teacher. Raise my taxes, do what you need to do, but we need highly effective teachers here. Now, I have 2 questions. Am I allowed to ask both or just one? I have to follow the rules.
Let's ask the one that's most important to you, and then maybe we can get back around to you.
Okay, Mr. Ayers, I would like you to be specific on your comment early on about the differences working with the board, whether you're appointed or elected.
The difference is that I will also have to be answering to the voters. That is the major difference between having an elected superintendent and an appointed superintendent. You won't be able, the board, as it's been doing in the past for the past 20 years, firing or the superintendent has been resigning, will not have that kind of control and power and authority over the new superintendent. So again, if you continue to do the same thing over and over and over again, you're going to continue to have the same result, declining, declining, declining. And we have to change the trajectory. We have to change the trajectory. And God willing, if I'm successful, I will change that trajectory.
Mrs. Carlin, you're going to have about
I'm sorry, we'll have to
30
come back around for
seconds.
that second question. And if time allows, we will. So stay in tune. Let's get a question on the other side here.
Good evening. My name is Paul Leingang. My wife and I became first-time parents in June, and I'm going to blink. Thank you. Yeah, he's pretty cute. I'm going to blink, and he's going to be going to school, right? So my question for you, Dr. Carlin, is on your campaign's website, you write, quote, you want to bring conservative principles to the school district. Tonight you spoke about increasing literacy, teacher retention, student safety, and more. I'm struggling to see how these are either conservative or liberal. I don't think anyone on either side of the political spectrum would be against teaching kids to read better, paying teachers more, or being financially prudent. So can you explain specifically what you mean by bringing conservative values into the school district, and what are the, quote, conservative values that you think our schools are lacking? Please be specific.
Thank you very much for the question. So, when you think about being a conservative, there are certain principles that are held near and dear to your heart, and that is of individual freedom, so allowing for people to differ, to have freedom of speech. Things like limited government, making sure that we understand what our role is as a school district. Our role is to educate children. Sometimes we get off on all kinds of tangents, and you've heard both my opponent and I speak tonight about the decline in student achievement. We know that we're all given in all districts the same amount of time, give or take a half hour or so. We're all given the opportunity to hire great teachers. It really comes down to what are we teaching, how are we teaching it. We get our children about 6 hours and 15 minutes a day. If you subtract out their transition time, lunch, the little guys, the recess, on a good day, we're getting 4.5 hours of instruction. So my limited government take on that in terms of conservative principle is understand what we're about. We are about teaching and learning. Parents are about raising their children. So limiting government's reach. And I'll give you another example.
30 seconds.
Financial responsibility. It is absolutely incumbent upon us to treat taxpayers' dollars like the precious dollars they are. We all work too hard for our dollars, and the school district takes a substantial amount of those tax dollars to educate our children. I am advocating that we are fiscally conservative, that we look at what are the must-dos, what are the nice-to-dos, and get very focused on the must-dos. We don't have a money tree in the backyard. We must be fiscally responsible and conservative. So those are a few examples of the conservative principles I'm speaking about.
Thank you. And let me insert another question from our streaming audience before we go back to the floor, and we'll give both candidates a minute to respond. This question revisits the elected superintendent's position. It says, now that the superintendent is an elected partisan position, how will you handle partisan political attitudes and opinions if it conflicts with the best interest and education of children and the best interest of the teachers? This strikes me as being worthy of being revisited because, as was indicated in one of your responses, this differences in how the two neighboring school districts have dealt with the book ban. Was mentioned that Collier has over 100 books that they banned from their list. Lee has 6. So there's a wide spectrum of discrepancy there. With that legislation and the partisanship now involved, how will you resolve the conflicts if the partisan policy making conflicts with the best interests of all the children? And I would say, I think at least most folks present here tonight have some sense that the anti-diversity sentiment and the feel of the hostile wording in the concept of woke and the woke act has a different feel to children of color and what awaits them in the school system as opposed to non-children of color. So please answer that in that light. You're looking to tense. Let me give you both an opportunity, but if you'd like to treat it first, you made our contact first.
Sure,
so
I'd be
it's
happy
yours
to do
first.
that. Absolutely. So the very first thing that is important for you to know is, and again, this goes to my history, we will always do what's right by children in this district. We will always put children first. Having said that, if there is a law that we don't agree with as a community, it is not the purview of the superintendent to say, I'm not going to follow that law. You take an oath to follow the law of the state of Florida and of our nation. If we don't like a law, what do? We change it. So as a community, if there are things that are happening that we as a community feel is not proper, we don't want to encourage elected officials, i.e. the superintendent, the school board, to say, we're not going to follow the law. That's against your oath. That's against doing what is right. What we will do is find ways to operate within the parameters of the law, and Pastor Glover gave a perfect example of that, where one county, through creative thinking, was able to only have 6 books removed, and another county, they implemented it in a completely different way, and there were hundreds of books removed from the shelf. So we will always do what's right by children, but we will always follow the law. If we don't like the law, we work to change the law, not encourage people not to follow the law.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes, sir. In this community, since I lived here for over 25 years, and I've been practicing, have my own practice for 23 years, there's a lot of intimidation that goes on. A lot of intimidation. And there's a lot of fear mongering people. And then you have politicians supporting one another, basically discouraging others to run for office based on fear. So we have to change this environment. We have to change the environment and basically fight back by voting people out. Because you don't want to continue to be intimidated, because intimidation is not going to innovate. It's not going to be creative. It's not going to allow you to be the best that you can be. It's not going to encourage those kids to shoot for the stars. We have to stop intimidating each other. We have to support each other, and we have to vote those people that use these tactics, okay, so that people like yourselves
30 seconds, please.
won't vote. You have to vote, and you can't allow intimidation. You can't allow that. So that's what I'm hoping, again, to change the reputation and to stop doing things over and over and over again, expecting a different result. We need to change. Look at the past 30 years.
Yep.
Not much has happened. Not much of positive things have happened. It's been declining, and more intimidation, and same result. We have to change. We got to vote them out.
Your time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for a few more questions before we go to our closing statements and the conclusion of our program for tonight. This parent's been standing for a while with her hand back. Can we take that one, and then, sir, we'll come back over to you. And we've got some hands in the middle here that we haven't called that section yet, so we'll get a couple questions from there.
Hello, everyone. Our goal is to recruit and retain teachers that will increase teacher efficacy and student achievement, and that has been a part of our mission for over 10 years. How are we to retain quality educators with very minimal funding allocated to instructional coaching? For the support, coaching required for developing and emerging teachers, as we have advocated for ongoing educational research.
And who you're directing that question to?
That's to both candidates.
Okay, 1 minute, please.
So, and I apologize, but I'm going to go back to the same thing. We got to change the culture, okay? We have to have a better community, an inviting community, so that we can have those teachers that want to come over here. And it'll be a lot easier to recruit, and it'll be a lot easier to retain if we improve the culture and stop trying to intimidate people, okay? And stop having the leader saying, do as I tell you, otherwise you're going to be fired or disciplined. No, you have to encourage creativity. You have to encourage innovation, and you have to really keep the door open. But we cannot continue to do the same things over and over and over again and expect a different result. Going back to another thing.
30 seconds.
Remember when I was recruited 30 years ago, 33 years ago, they put me out on the beach. And like I said, because I was put out on the beach, that opened up my eyes to beauty, to paradise, quote unquote, okay? So that will be part of my administration, to go out there to businesses and say, businesses, you're part of the school district. Come and help us. Pay for 10 rooms so that we can recruit those 10 teachers, so they can come down here and stay in those rooms and feel like I felt, okay? So they will come here and will not feel as though, and read about the reputation that we have, okay? And not feel so bad that we'll continue to be a declining school district in terms of achievement.
Good time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Denise?
Yes, so your question is very well taken. So when we train surgeons, we don't just turn them loose and say, go have brain surgery, right? We have a mentor, a coach, somebody that's standing along with them to help them along the way and to refine their craft so that they can become experts in that field. But we do that to teachers. So again, I'm a big believer, past behavior is indicative of future behavior. When I was in HR several years ago, we went after a $45 million TIF grant, a teacher incentive fund grant. We created a teacher career ladder, which not only allowed teachers to make more money, but they made more money based on their contributions, based on the coaching, and based on the results of children. Of teachers that they had coached. We had money for mentors, we had money for coaches, and when the grant expired, we utilized that, the dollars from Title I, which could be used at certain schools to keep that program intact. We had a change of leadership, unfortunately, that was not supported moving forward, and so if I am elected, we will go back to finding that teacher incentive fund grant, which I'm hearing is still in existence. We will infuse some money into the coaching that needs to occur, and we won't have teachers conducting brain surgery when they're just out of school. We'll have somebody with them to help them.
Okay, so we're fastly approaching the point of diminishing returns. So we want to take a question from the center here, and then this parent in the white blouse who's been standing for a very long time. As a matter of fact, let's just go ahead and take this one, and then this parent who's been standing in the white blouse.
Good evening. My name is Angela McCleary. I have a 12-year-old granddaughter in the school system. And up until this year, was transported by a bus. This year, she doesn't have a bus. I'm her transporter. If she did not have me, she would have to walk down Gunnery Road, over Lee Boulevard, to get to Varsity Lakes Middle. And there was an article, August the 12th, a representative from the school transportation department stated in the media that they were short 75 bus drivers. And also, it was stated that there's a lot of bus drivers that had quit, experienced bus drivers, due to pay. The new current bus drivers was being paid more than your old experienced bus drivers. My question to you is, what would you do to retain experienced drivers with fair pay so we can get our kids back on the bus?
Ms. Carlin, let's have you treat this one first.
Sure,
As
happy
Victor
to,
tried the other
absolutely.
one.
So like our teachers, like other support folks, like our administrators, you know, if we want to retain high quality people, then we make that a priority in our budget. I mentioned before, we have a $2.7 billion, let me say that again, $1 billion budget. About a year ago, the prior superintendent found just over $32 million for 8% raises for teachers, for support staff, and it was my understanding there were some administrative raises as well. If we can find 32, we can find more. It really comes down to how we operate our budget at home. You center on, you align your budget with what your priorities are. If we believe that high quality staff and high quality teachers and leaders make a difference, then we will align our budget with those priorities. If we don't, we won't, and that's what's been happening in this district.
Mr. Ayers.
So let's think out of the box, right? We're having a shortage of teachers, we're having a shortage of bus drivers, we're having a shortage of personnel just in general, cafeteria workers, paraprofessionals, everybody, okay? And that to me, again, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that there's a problem. There's a problem, okay? Because the old ways are not working. So just an idea, right? They have, everyone accumulates a sick day per month. So they get 12 sick days per year. That's part of the collective bargaining, I believe. It's part of the process. So, however, those sick days can only be used when based upon retirement. It's accumulated. So I'm just thinking, as an incentive, why not allow bus drivers to access that money during December, for example, for Christmas?
30 seconds.
So they can have more money to give kids and everything else. And you know what? During Christmas times and those vacation times are the times where most of the people are out, sick, or they just want a vacation time. So if they have access, if the encouragement is to, hey, I can tap into those sick days, accumulated sick days, I will bet you that you're going to have a lot more, okay, bus drivers show up to work. And probably that will be an additional incentive to recruit more bus drivers, okay? And I think that we can deal with that shortage of bus drivers if we can change the culture in the school district and stop doing things the same old tired ways.
Thank you, sir. That's your time. And our final question before we have closing comments.
My question is for Ms. Carlin. And I would just like to preface my question by saying that I understand that the superintendent and the board do have to comply with state law. That is not the answer or the direction that I'm looking for. I'm speaking as a graduate of Lee County Schools, IB student, and as a mother of a middle schooler, and a lover of books and knowledge and education. So you mentioned that you weren't endorsed by Governor DeSantis, but you are endorsed by, on your website it says, Representative Persons Malika and Representative Roach. Representative Roach donated the max contribution amount to your campaign of $1,000, his PAC did. And David Malika, who's also a county candidate for this upcoming election, is the husband of Jenna Parsons Malika. Representative Parsons Malika donated the max amount to your campaign of 2 installments of $500, so for the max of $1,000. They both voted in support of HB 1467, which has affected our county in declining teacher loss because of the restrictions that it places on books in the classroom, effectively the book ban, and they also voted for HB 7, which is known as like the Stop Woke Act. And in the bill summary, it specifically states not even just concepts of race and color, but specifically revising history of African Americans. So how can I, as a parent that's like unfortunately counting down the years till my son is in college, worrying that he will not be competitive with his peers from other states, from other counties, or just the poor quality of education for the sake of politics? It's really disconcerting as a parent to know that your kid is getting a poorer education than you did in the same place.
Yeah, so really a two-part question. First of all, thank you for your question. So we have had a number of people donate to my campaign, and I will tell you.
Allow her to answer.
Oh,
please.
endorse. I'm sorry. So we'll talk about endorsements and money and all that because it all came together. So when you live somewhere for 55 years, you get to know people. And there are people that have worked with me, law enforcement, representatives, state and government officials, and also community members, community leaders, what have you. When people work with you, they know how you operate. They know that you are going to put children first. They know that you're going to pick up the phone when something is happening at a school that's of concern. So I happily accept those endorsements. I'm proud of those endorsements because they show confidence in my leadership. Second of all, the money that is donated. I've had donations from $5 all the way to the max of $1,000. There are many people in this community that have donated to me. And why? Because I have built relationships with them over time. And you know what they're entitled to when they make a donation? A thank you card. That's what they get when they make a donation. As to the legislation that has been put into place, this may not be the answer you want to hear, but the superintendent of schools does not have the right to violate the law. And I will go back and share with you that if we don't like the law, we are incumbent to change the law. And that is a community decision. That is all of our responsibilities. So yes, when I take that oath, if I am successful in being elected, I will take that oath seriously. I will follow the law. And if we decide, all of us, that we do not support the law, then we will work to change the law. However, in my administration, I will never tolerate going outside of the law, and I will never encourage schools or teachers to break the law. That's not the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do to advocate for change. That's what this country was built on.
Okay. If I can answer that.
I'll give you 1 minute, and then we must close. I'm sure you all have homes you would want to return to. But this is great, the dialogue that you have stayed. And so I think you should give yourself a round of applause for that. It shows the interest in this very most important decision that we're going to be facing. So, Mr. Ayers, you get the final word, 1 minute on this final question, and then we will give you 1 minute to make your closing case why you should be elected.
Okay. Just to go to your point, right? And just to add that my goal is to remove politics and take as much politics out of the school district, because there's so much politics now. You have The interim superintendent, he also donated the maximum, which was $1,000. So I think that's politics in itself. Then you also have people using words like conservative. You also have people using the word, experienced. Those are just loaded words to say, let's continue to do the same thing over and over and over and over again and expect a different result, okay? You have to get involved. You have to vote, because if not, we're going to have the same people, and you're going to have the same decline in student achievement if we allow this
30 seconds,
to
sir.
continue. So I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote for myself, obviously, because I want to change. We have to change. And I hope each and every one of you will vote and bring others with you, because everyone has to get involved, as she stated, for change. We cannot continue to do the same things over and over again. We can't. We can't. The young lady just said she has her child, okay? We have to change for that child so that that child can be competitive, so that child can be a part of our future.
Thank you so very much. All righty, folks. Before we hear our concluding final statements from our panelists, why don't you give them a round of applause and yourselves for the level of engagement that has taken place here tonight. And again, by what amounted to a coin toss or the drawing of straws, the closing order was determined prior to tonight's forum. And Ms. Carlin got the opening statement, so that means Mr. Aries has the final statement. So, Ms. Carlin, in one moment, make the closing case in terms of why you should be the choice for superintendent of schools.
Thank you, sir. Well, first of all, congratulations for making it a couple of hours with us, and thank you for your great questions. I also want to thank the Alliance and our panelists, as well as Pastor Glover, for being here tonight and for hanging with us and giving some great conversation tonight. So, and thank you, all of you. So I will start with experience matters. When you have a $2.7 billion budget, when you have 13,000 employees, when you have 103,000 students entrusted to your care, experience matters. I will tell you that I spent the majority of my career at the district office fighting against the bureaucracy, pushing us to make different decisions, asking for us to move the needle and do things in a different way. I had the opportunity to lead divisions, to lead schools, and those were divisions and schools of excellence. I was able to influence my neck of the woods. I have never had the opportunity to be the CEO, the superintendent of this school district. Based on some of the information I've shared with you tonight, you can tell that there is an opportunity for change. We know the statistics, we know the figures for student achievement, we know what the priorities are and what they should be. When given the opportunity, this young lady who likes to implement change and likes to move things forward on behalf of children will actually do that. I will no longer have to push back against the bureaucracy. I will be the leader that gets to implement the things that need to happen, the things that I've wanted to happen for years. So experience matters. He's right, we do need change. As superintendent, you get the opportunity to bring about change. So that's what I wanted to let you know. I hope you do get out and vote on November 5th. It's a very important election. It will determine the trajectory of this school district, and our children's lives absolutely matter. I would encourage you to vote for the person that has the experience, the background, the knowledge on how to get things done. I am very aware of the research. I know what moves schools, and not only am I aware of the research, I've implemented the research and been involved in successful turnarounds of schools and turnarounds of divisions. I know what works. Given the opportunity, we'll do that system-wide. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. And in fairness, I thought it was important to hear the totality of the closing thoughts. You were allowed an additional minute and 13 seconds for that purpose. So, Mr. Aries, you have 2 minutes and 13 seconds for your closing thoughts.
Oh, excuse me. I can stretch out. It is time. It is time for a change. First, addressing my experience. As I told you, I was recruited here 25 years ago to be the attorney for the superintendent. Before that, I was an attorney for another superintendent. Here, during that time period, I was recruited basically because there was a desegregation order in place. And because of the intimidation and the practices, I could only stay there for about 2 or 3 years. Then I opened up my own practice, and I continue to serve you in many different nonprofit organizations, from the United Way to Suncoast Credit Union to Amigo Center, and there are countless and countless organizations. I was also involved with FGCU. We have a STEM program encouraging kids to go to college, and they spend 2 weeks
1 minute, sir.
during the summer at the school. STEM program. I need you to come, bring your friends, bring your family, bring everybody, because we're going to need a groundswell. I mean a groundswell to change, because we cannot allow this organization to continue the way that has been going for so many years. But the only way to change is if you get involved, get engaged, and hold us to the fire, hold our feet to the fire, and make sure that we're treating every child, every parent, every employee, teacher, custodian, everybody the same, with respect. Okay? We cannot continue to do the same old thing over and over again, like I stated before,
You're at your
and expect
time.
the same result. Please vote Victor Arias for Superintendent of Schools November the 5th. But you got to get people to register. Please register others.
Thank you so very much. Well, that concludes the question and answering. I neglected to do something in the beginning, and I certainly need to acknowledge the contribution of our panelists to this forum, who worked with me in organizing and structuring the questioning and placing them in categories. I did not allow them to introduce themselves and their professional affiliations, and I want to do that before we leave and give them a moment for their final thoughts, if they have any, for tonight. Let's begin on the end of the table with our first finalist.
Well, I'm Reverend Dr. Ricky Anderson, founding pastor of Followers of Christ Fellowship Ministry, and also vice president of the Greater Community Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance. And I would just like to say, children are our future. Let us teach them the way, show them all the beauty they possess inside, and give them a sense of pride.
All right.
Thank you. I'm Gwen Gittens, formerly from the Lee County School Board. And I first of all want to say thank you and to your church and the organization for allowing people to be educated. This is about education and about your education. People can't vote if they don't know what to vote for. And these types of forums, it's going to be on the website, and it'll be available. So let other people know to take a look at it. When you walk into the voting booth, you need to know who and what and why you're voting. So make sure that you do. I thank you for the candidates and everyone, and I enjoyed working with all of you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Christopher Blakely. As a profession, I'm a higher education administrator. I will say my concentration is on student success. So education is something that's very important to me. I do have 2 children in the district. I've worked on advisory committees with the district, and I also serve as the chair of the Voteless People as a Hopeless People for Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Thank you all for being here this evening, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve as a panelist.
Thank you so very much. With that, let me just share a few things of what's next. As has been indicated, the 16 Congregation Greater Community Interdenominational Minister Alliance has sponsored this forum, and we've sponsored multiple forums and symposiums of this nature, and we will continue to do so as we move forward. So we want to ask you to stay in tuned, and if you had a valuable experience and learned tonight, we would ask that you would just share that word of mouth, the work that we're doing to educate and to coordinate and bring communities together. Also, the Alliance is going to be coordinating a Souls to the Polls drive through our member congregation and congregations in our community. Our gathering place for that drive is going to be at Clemente Park on Saturday, October the 26th, from roughly noon to 4 p.m. There will be a massive effort to get people to the polls to participate in this election cycle. We also going to be emphasizing a 100% congregation voter registration drive through October the 7th, which is the final day of voter registration in our own congregations, and as many congregations we can get to sign on to this effort. I want to say for all clergy who may be viewing or will view from our streaming platforms or our website, the next Alliance Clergy meeting is actually this Saturday, 9/21 at 3 p.m. here at Mount Hermon Church. We want to invite you to come out. And as I always say in these gatherings, let's correct the narrative that congregations are not working together on behalf of our community. We have 16 congregations that have united, and we are inviting of all congregations and clergy to be a part of the work that we do. So help spread that word. With that, we want to thank you for joining us tonight. Again, we trust this has been a valuable experience for you. Express my appreciation to these candidates who were very cooperative from the beginning and eager to come and share their vision for the district with you from the very beginning. And you both did an outstanding job tonight and represented yourselves well. So thank you for that. I'm going to ask Dr. Ricky Anderson to close us in prayer. And if you'll be so kind, candidates, to just remain for a quick moment, and our photographers, and we don't have one, somebody anoint themselves. We want to get we want to get some pictures of our panelists so that we can share this in our Facebook post. Dr. Anderson.
Let us all stand, because I do have a house to go to. God, our Father, we thank you for allowing us to be able to gather tonight. We thank you for every word that has been shared. We thank you especially for the candidates here tonight expressing themselves as well as answering the questions that was presented to them. We thank you for our moderator. We thank you for the guidance that he has given us. We even thank you for the panelists that worked tonight to make this a successful occasion. We thank you even for those that gathered to learn what it was that they need to learn about the superintendent position. It's a very, very important position for Lee County, for our children that goes to school each and every day. God, we just pray that you would give us a superintendent that will include every person, everybody in Lee County. We pray now that you would bless homes that's represented here. We pray that you would go with us and stand by us. Dismiss us now. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.